I got a really interesting stat from ShotScope this week that said, look, for the average golfer, if you improve your tee to green game by 10%, you will improve your score by only 0.2 shots. But if you improve your short game within 50 yards of the green by 10%, you'll knock off a whopping 4.9 shots off your score. That is how important understanding how to play short shots around the greens is. Now, this week I had Mike come and see me, and chipping was a disaster. Form of anxiety, stress, frustration. You've probably seen it, often fatting, often thinning, completely not knowing what to do. All he wanted from me was a technique that would guarantee contact time and time again, just something that he could do so he could start enjoying this part of the game. So I introduced him to a concept that I actually got from a friend of mine, Joe Mayer. Now, I was pretty good at sorting people's short game out, but once he introduced me to this concept, the speed at which I was able to improve my students went up immensely. It's absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to share it with you because it will transform your chipping from all shots around the green. But before I get into the video, look, if you're new to the channel, for your first lessons of mine, please consider subscribing, or at least videos just like this one every single week to try and help you improve your game. Plus, you never have to remember a thing. Everything I do here, I'll put into a free download or practice guide in the description box below. So before I share this technique with you, which I know you're going to absolutely love, there's two things you need to know about chipping to start with. For most chip shots around the green, to make solid contact, you want a descending blow on that ball. You want to make sure you avoid the ground behind the golf ball and catch that ball solid. It's just guaranteed strike and gets you a nice bit of spin. To do that, we want the bottom of the arc of the swing look here after the golf ball. A lot of times people shift this kind of bottom of the arc too far behind the golf ball and start grounding out way, way too early. The other thing you need to do, you need to control the depth that this arc goes under the ground. So you could get the bottom of the arc here, there, but it could go too deep under the ground. If that happens, we could start to catch the ground too deep and you start fatting it. So the two things we need to control are the bottom of your arc, if we can get that consistent, and the depth of your arc, you're gonna be a much, much better chipper. To do that, you're gonna need this technique. So the first thing I'd like to say is, look, if you are one of those chippers that struggles with the short game and gets a little bit anxious, this is really, really gonna help you massively. It really, really will. And it certainly did for Mike. So Mike, like a lot of players, if you're struggling with chipping, the core element generally comes from a golfer almost thinking that they've got to get a lot of elevation on their chip shots. And as a byproduct to that, to some level, you get a swing that tends to work around too much. It tends to work a bit out to the right too much. It tends to work under too much. And that causes a whole host of problems. Thins, fats, you know it. Once you've fatted it once, you then avoid the ground, then you start thinning it, and it's just a whole hodgepodge of lots and lots of different bad shots, leading to lots of anxiety. So how do we then create consistent contact time and time again? Great chipping starts with a great setup. Now, what I want you to do is this. Most people are standing way too far away from the golf ball. I like to get very, very close to the golf ball, and I do this for a couple of reasons. If you're too far away from the ball, this angle here in your wrist between the forearm, ultimately the problem is if you've got a lot of angle here, that angle can come out here in the golf swing. If that angle comes out, it can go deep under the ground, right? Because you're extending, look, the radius of your circle, of your arc, so it can go under the ground. So the very first thing I do with players is get them much, much closer to the ball. I get the hands raised up much, much more here. So the shaft isn't vertical, but it's much, much higher. You can see here, look, my wrist is much, much flatter. It's not got this angle in here. That's a huge start. The next thing I'll do is I'll move the ball back. Now, a lot of people have frowned upon that. So if you move the ball back, that's old-fashioned. You're gonna fat it. It isn't. It's one of the best ways of guaranteeing great contact. So my ball goes back in my stance, my handle goes forward, and my hands are up. That's simple as that. Then I'll make sure that this section here, the upper part of the chest, or even better still, get the nose look this side of the golf ball here. So they rather than most people that are back here, I then get their nose looking ahead of the golf ball. All these things are doing, what they're doing, they're shifting the bottom of the golf swing look so it's guaranteed to be after the ball, so you guarantee strike. This is the first thing you need to do at setup. You do that, you've ticked the first box, you're almost there. And I say almost, because the next stage is this. You can still screw it up from here. Now, you'll see I put a little stick here. This stick here is basically going to monitor the plane or the arc that I swing on. I like to see Ferris wheel style swings. I don't like to see roundabouts. This helps to improve my angle of attack going into that golf ball here. If I start to go under this here, I then start to swing out to the right. I then start to flick the club around the corner in order to try and get it back to target. A whole host of things can start to happen. So how do we naturally now keep that club working up this kind of plane line here? So got my ball set up here, handle high from here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt my body towards the target here, almost like I'm crunching my love handles in here, and I've got a few, crunching in here. That takes the club look beautifully up this plane here. From here, all I'm going to do, very, very important, is allow the club to come straight back down to the golf ball. Now, a great image that Joe gave me here, and it really is super, super cool, is to keep the thumbs feeling like they're pointing downwards. So I'm not cocking up, I'm keeping them pointing downwards. Again, if I cock up too much, I'm increasing this kind of angle here, which can then come out, makes it complicated. If I just keep those thumbs down here and tilt, this club works beautifully up the line and comes straight back down into impact. And that's all it is. So let's start by I'll show you a couple of shots, and then I'll go through a couple of questions that often my students ask me while I'm doing this. And can you see the check on that ball there? You see the backspin? Guarantees strike every single time. Now, when I'm doing this is really important. So when Mike did this to start with, I said to him, do it really slowly first. So the first thing he did is just try to do it with his arms. I don't want you to do that. All we're doing here, look, you're setting the angle here. We're crunching the love handles, and we're going to do trace it up and then get the thumbs, making sure they're pointing downwards here. Trace it up, point the thumbs down. Keep the thumbs pointing down all the way. Notice this. There's not loads of rotation going backwards. All I'm doing is I'm tilting back, crunching those love handles, pointing my thumbs down, and you see maybe even my body's almost coming up slightly as I'm striking this, but I'm guaranteeing that ball first contact. Now, after about half an hour practicing this, Mike's short game and strike ramped up immensely. It was so good to see. But like always, he would ask me questions like, but what happens if you need a little bit more elevation, Danny? It's a great question, isn't it? Because you do need more elevation around the greens. Well, you don't need to change very much. Again, keep it incredibly simple. So if I wanted more elevation, all I would do is simply, what is elevation? It's a little bit more loft. So I would start to move the ball position maybe a little bit further forward. I might even open my face, but nothing else changes. From here, look, all I'm gonna do is the same principle. I'm still gonna, in a sense, crunch those love handles back, allow the thumbs to come down here, but because I'm going to catch it slightly or later in the arc, there's more loft, that ball will pop up a little bit higher. So it's not huge, but you don't need lots of elevation in golf, right? So I've pushed the ball a little bit further forward in my stance. I've opened the face a little bit here. I'm going to work on this motion, backwards and forwards, thumbs down, and away we go. And you can see there, look, just pops up a little bit, comes up with a little bit more spin. That is as simple as that. This is how I want you to chip most of the time around the greens. You need to work on a system that's going to guarantee strike. When you guarantee strike, it's going to build up your confidence. You're going to enjoy chipping. And Mike is well on his way now to being a good chipper. Of course, he's going to require practice with this. But start small with this. Huge thanks to Joe for introducing to me this a few years ago. Absolute legend. But go and give it a try. You'll absolutely love it. If you want to learn how then to take this moving to pitching, so that from maybe 30 to 80 yards, click this video right here. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, maybe share it with one of your friends. And of course, look, if you're new to the channel, press that subscribe button down here. I'll put a free download practice guide in the description box below. But until next week, have a wonderful golfing week.